I'd like to turn our attention now to a story that's nothing short of inspiring. Julia Bardmesser emigrated from Ukraine to become a CEO here in the United States. Listen as she shares her story, drawing upon her grandmother's courage and intellect to bring truth and clarity into the world of data management.
I'm Julia Bardmesser. This is my story of influence and impact. I have a lot of stories and I use them all the time. When I talk to people, when I have to make a case for something, I find it easier if I use a story of my life to make a point without being too obvious about it. When I left Kiev, so to come to United States, I was in my early 20s. I had no idea what it's going to be on the side. It was still, I left, it was 1989. We didn't have a lot of view of what the life is like in United States. So it was a leap of faith. On the other hand, it's nice to be young and fairly oblivious. When you exited the country, as part of that process, you lost citizenship, and which made me stateless. At the time, I had no idea that being stateless is actually pretty bad. It took 5 years till I got the citizenship here, so I came as a refugee, so it was all very smooth. But I never really realized how bad it is to be stateless till recently when you read about refugees and being stateless and not having any country behind you to defend you, now I realize it. Back then, I was like, okay, this is how it is, this is what we have to do, I'll just do it. That leap of faith, and just going through all of this and leaning into things unknown, being uncomfortable in the new country, language, understanding people, being able to express myself. There is a lot of discomfort there, even in my 20s. So the way it influenced me in my career is that I'm very comfortable with discomfort, and I'm very comfortable with change. I've changed my jobs, not too many times, but enough. And I've had questions asking me, why are you changing the job? You have a good job, you have a nice office in a nice building, and you get paid reasonably well, and you don't actually have to do very much in that specific job. Why are you changing? And I want to do new things. I want to experience new things, and I'm not afraid. So it made me easier to get over just being scared and just trust that it's going to be okay. My grandmother on my father's side, she was a scientist. And so when I say to people here that my grandmother was a scientist in 70s, 80s, that's very unusual because women generally in 70s and 80s in the United States, you didn't have a lot of scientists. Not only she was a scientist, material science, she was also the head of a large research department in one of the premier research institutes in Kiev. She had high-level secret clearance because she was working for both war efforts and space efforts. She was consulted when Chernobyl blew up within the first few days because she was almost immediately consulted on what to put on top of it to lessen the radiation leaking out. So not only she was a woman, and she was a Jewish woman in the Soviet Union in that position. So that was unusual even for Soviet Union, where women were basically in any job you can think of. All of that kind of started when she was 50. So till she was 50, she was a research analyst. She really didn't think about moving upwards in her career. And then a new boss showed up, and he believed in her, and he told her to go do her dissertation and write a book when she was 50, just as I was born. And she did. The second one she did when she was 60 in Soviet Union, there are 2 levels. So all of that happened after she was 50. So there are 2 things here. A, it's never too late, obviously, to start new things, and that had a very direct influence on the decisions I've made recently in my life. And the second one, there were still majority of people in material sciences were men, and she used to host dinner parties, or we would go on vacation and we would meet her students or people she worked with. And I was just very comfortable sitting at the table with a bunch of really smart, some of them very highly placed men, and just having a conversation. So that helped me a great deal because in financial services, till very, very recently, I've been the only woman at the table for so many times. And for a while, I didn't even notice it. I became much more conscious about it recently, but throughout my career, I just didn't even notice it because that's just normal. I'm a foodie, and every vacation, I take food tours. And as part of food tour, it was very interesting because they didn't even tell us that's where we were going, and it's a wall. And like, why are we here? There isn't a restaurant, there isn't anything here. And then it's a wall, and within the wall, it's a lazy Susan. So that was civil. And they say nuns, and it's cloistered nuns behind that wall, they bake cookies, and they need something to support themselves, so they sell cookies. If you're a cloistered nun, how do you sell a cookie if you're not supposed to either see the customer or they cannot see you? So that was a lazy Susan, and you put cash on it, you swang it, and then a moment later the cookies would come out. And I took a picture of that, and it was just a fun story. And then 6 months later, I started a new job, and I was talking to both my teams, and I started talking to business people. And when I was talking to my teams and I was asking them, so tell me what you do and what are the business problems you're solving, they could tell me about technical problems they were solving. They could not talk at all about the business problems they were solving. They had no access, they never talked to business people. They worked through other technology teams. And when I talked to business people, they didn't quite know the data team even existed. So I took that photo of cloistered, of lazy Susan in the wall, and I started telling the story that data team is like cloistered nuns. Everybody sees the result, and sometimes the funding that goes in, but really doesn't even meet the people. So that was a good story, and obviously I worked to change that and to bring team out in the open and introduce the team to business people and business people to the team, and create that knowledge and understanding of the impact that the team has on the outcomes for the company. How do you make decisions to change what you do? And we do it so often, or I've done it so often. And one of the biggest changes that I've had was the decision I made a year and a half ago to exit my very comfortable corporate job and strike off on my own as a consultant and advisor. And the funny thing is that I've never been a consultant in my life, ever. So the way I've made the decision is what it is that I want in my life. So I now got to the age and kind of time in my life where I can think more deeply about what I want to do and why am I here and why I want to do this and what it is that brings me pleasure and enjoyment. And I realized it's a question of value. I talked a little bit about how difficult it is to explain the value from data, and I'm good at that. And I'm not just good at explaining it, but I'm also good at figuring out how to build the strategy that creates that value from data analytics and technology assets. But if I work for one company, I'm doing it only for one company, and I get deeper and deeper into culture and politics of that one company. And the longer you stay in one company, frankly, the less impact you have. And if I'm an advisor, I can broaden my reach. So I started working with nonprofits, and that was accidental to a certain degree, just to the extent that I've been open that I would work not just with financial services companies. All of my career has been financial services. But I work with nonprofits and I work with biotech companies. So I learn a lot, and I can also bring that type of impact to smaller companies and to different industries. So that really helped, that connecting is what is it that I want to be and what's important to me. So the first advice is sit at the table. And I have a story of my own on that in a very large financial services company, and I actually had a piece of presentation, and I was a couple of minutes late. And I come in, and there is a huge table, and then chairs around the table, and then lots of chairs in the back. And there is only one seat open around the table, and it's between CFO and Chief Financial Officer and Chief Risk Officer of the company. And Chief Financial Officer of the company is not known by being warm and cuddly. I sit in the back, and then I have a prep talk with myself, like, I'm being stupid. I belong at the table, and I will have to present. I need to go and sit there. So I went and I sat there, and it was totally fine, and both of them were lovely companions for that meeting. So even with all of my history and of being used so much, of being at the table, even I had to do this. So first one is sit at the table. You cut the space, go take your space. And the second one, lean into discomfort and keep doing things that are interesting to you, but you're not necessarily comfortable doing, because that's how you grow, both not only in terms of the titles and the jobs and money, but also as a person. You push at the limits of your comfort zone, and your comfort zone becomes bigger. Keep pushing at your comfort zone because you don't want your comfort zone to shrink on you.
As Julia shows us, data isn't all about numbers. It's about insight, impact, and leading with purpose. Her story sheds light on not just the value of data, but the power of resilience and the influence of family legacies.